Welcome, Rhiannon and Barbara. Rhiannon, do you want to tell us a little bit about where we are today?
Well, today we're in Ysgol Gymraeg Casnewydd. I'm Renold Davis and I'm a Year 6 teacher in the school, and we've been working with you for, well, the last 2 years on primary agenda. And this is Barbara Lovesey, and she's a parent of a child in my class.
I've been researching for about 20 years now, looking at and listening to children speak about issues that usually research doesn't go into. So gender and sexual well-being has been a really important part of that. Everything from well-being, but also kind of the other end of the spectrum, looking at gender-based violence, bullying, discrimination and so on. So agenda is part of how do we do that? How do we listen to children about these sometimes quite difficult issues? So it's kind of bringing in what I've been learning as a researcher and the methods we use into now a practitioner resource. And so when I visited your school, you were already using some of these activities. So it was lovely to feature this school as a case study in primary agenda. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that, but that whole school approach to gender equality, sexual equality and rights was just perfect for what we needed in that resource. And then coming back and doing more work with you has been really inspiring.
So the Pioneer Project started with leaders such as Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and then it moved on to Malala Yousafzai and Girls in Education, and then snowballed into all kinds of leaders. We discussed Harvey Milk and gay rights, and I think that's one of the things that with relationship and sexuality education, that people have this misconception and teaching staff have a misconception that it's all focused on the biology of sex and puberty, and that's an important part of it, but it's not about having discrete standalone lessons. I think that's what we feel passionately about, like you said, the whole school approach, that it's something that we discuss from nursery to year 6, and we use a range of strategies. The agenda strategies have just highlighted and added to what we were already doing, but it's a brilliant resource for those ideas that are going to engage children, and I think that's the important thing.
It is, and I think when we look at where what was called SRE, Sex and Relationships Education, has been and where it is now, Wales is really being incredibly progressive in taking forward sex to sexuality. So like you say, it can now go across the whole curriculum. So in all the areas of learning experience that we have, from arts and expression all the way through to maths and literacy and communication, you can explore all those issues across the curriculum in an inclusive, holistic way. And that's not happening in many other places. And it's really exciting to be able to, give other schools around Wales the kind of ideas and inspiration to take that on. So when the new curriculum unfolds, there will be lots and lots of different case studies like yourselves, where other schools and teachers and kids can go, okay, how do we do this? What's happening?
And I think that it's that idea of thinking that primary school children are too young to discuss sexuality and gender equality, and you obviously stereotyping is something you do discuss, but it's that in-depth discussion, and that we do a lot of philosophy for children in school, and for the last 10 years, and that goes from nursery all the way to year 6, and no topic is out of bounds then, I say, if it's done in an age-appropriate way.
I mean, one of the things that when I was chairing the Sex and Relationships Education panel for the Minister of Education, Kirsty Williams, we discussed all of those issues you've talked about, including how childhood innocence is used to kind of move away from areas which adults think children don't want to go near. But actually all the research says that you need an experience near or experience close curriculum, so that it responds to the needs and the views and the questions and curiosities that children have, and working in that way. So it has to be relevant. But then you have to find ways to listen to those stories, and that's what I think you do so well in this school. And that's what agenda's all about as well, is different methods, different ways to listen what matters to children on their kind of areas of concern.
We have an unofficial school motto, which is being different is the only thing we've got in common. And that's something that we really do think is important, that children understand that they don't have to be a certain person or think a certain way, that they can be, they can be a girl and be interested in boyish activities, but also they can be a girl and like pink and like dancing. It doesn't matter. I think it's what so many adults struggle with, is being happy with who you are as a person. If we can teach them at a young age to discuss different things, and that, you know, that life isn't always easy and there are going to be challenges, and it's giving them an environment where they feel comfortable.
Social justice, actually, and rights are massively important for a gender. Equalities, diversity, rights and social justice. And when I say those words together, I think of Hannah.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Barbara, do you want to tell us a little bit about, you know, your experience of Hannah, you know, being part of this amazing whole school curriculum?
Absolutely, I must state how pleased I am that this topic is rolling into schools, because on the other side, sitting on the other side and working the mental health setting, I cannot count how many times I've heard, I wish this was taught in school.
Yeah.
So very often at the end of certain journeys, we support people with their difficulties, people who were subjected to bullying or other various styles of violence, and women from domestic violence background, and they said no one ever told me what the or even taught me how the healthy relationship looked like. And everyone is pointing at the school, because very often we cannot prevent, we cannot see what's happening at home, but school gives that opportunity to actually teach children what is good, what behavior is beneficial to children, and that's very. I was really pleased about that, hearing that school is picking up the topic, but how it fits to our family life. We have some certain jokes and anecdotes, because I always perceive myself as a quite progressive person, knowing it. And once we went to the park with children, and one of my girls asked, "Oh, I wonder if this dog which is wearing pink collar is a boy or a girl?" And I said, "Sorry, it's obvious, because it's wearing pink, it must be a girl." And they look at me really strangely and said, "You are stereotyping." and then I realized how much even young children are aware now that it can be hurtful to someone, and thinking that way it might cause some difficulties to other people who don't identify themselves with a particular gender. So I'm really pleased that school teachers respect in various areas, and this and gender, and that new curriculum helps and supports that. So hopefully, as a professional in the future, I will have less work to do to help people to overcome the difficulties because they've been bullied or mistreated.
I think Wales is a place that really takes that on. You know, it's a country really which has had social justice inside it for a very, very long time, and when you sort of bring inclusivity, that acceptance of all differences in the world with social justice, you know, you're really onto something to kind of address quite complicated and complex issues. And children get this. They are the powerless in society in terms of, you know, their role as children. And they understand social justice through age. But then when you couple that with all the other kind of differences in the world, they really get this stuff. It's
about, like we said earlier, not teaching these things discreetly in a way that's not inclusive to the curriculum, and I think that's what's important, is doing it in a way where it is a natural part of everyday life in school, because at the end of the day their health and well-being is going to impact their education in the end, and if they're happy and content in themselves and feel like they've got a voice, then that's going to impact how well they do in school in the future. I wish I was a child now and doing these things, because when I was a child it wasn't something that was discussed.
No, I remember, same with my school. No, it was all skirts, no trousers.
It's never been discussed in my school, neither. It's something you had to make your own mind about. And I'm just, when you're in Turkey, and I could here, and I thought to myself, how nice is that they have that opportunity to talk about and engage with the subject in safe and contained environment.
That's it. Yeah, it's kind of where I'm hoping primary agenda and the agenda resources more widely will go in Wales and beyond Wales, because that's kind of what it needs. And I think because we're in Wales, because we have this new curriculum coming forward, because it's about professional development, not your drop-down lesson plans necessarily, these probably, I think, are the resources we're going to need more of in Wales.
Definitely.
And there are so few on relationships and sexuality education, especially bilingual resources. You know, you're a Welsh medium school,
totally
you
agree with
need
you.
bilingual resources. There are some lovely resources around the world. They are not translated into Welsh. So we need to work on that. But the agenda resources, you know, primary agenda is bilingual. And I think that's really important.
That's really, and as a teacher in a Welsh school, you know, very often, like you say, there's so many wonderful ideas out there, but they aren't in Welsh.
No.
And it does take that extra effort and to translate things and change things and adapt them to Welsh, and to have something that's there ready and, you know, just makes your job so much easier. And it's also important because at the end of the day, we are in Wales as well.
Yeah. And it's not just about translation either.
Exactly.
We're in the Cwtch here, and actually one of the case studies called Sam's Story, which the Children's Commissioner for Wales did a whole project on bullying, actually. About 14,000 pieces of data she collected. And one of the activities worked with the Children's Commissioner is called Identity Cwtch. And it's creating a kind of box with lots of things in where you can put Sam in, and what does Sam need, you know, to kind of
that word Cwtch is brilliant, isn't it?
But Cwtch, you see, is just a fantastic word, because it's about a cuddle, but it's also about a safe place, a hiding place. So it's got place and identity and safety and privacy and comfort all wrapped into one. So again, it's not just translating, is it, from English to Welsh? It's actually bringing in and using what we have and the resource we have in Wales inside of that resource. And we're in the Cwtch, which is why I mentioned it.
Totally agree with
you. It's my favourite.
It is one of my favourite Welsh words, actually. Hug doesn't sound the same, does it?
No.
Cwtch is so much more, like you said.
When you were talking, a lot of was going through my mind, and I was thinking more from the parent point of view that recently I've heard that there is some resistance, parental resistance in rolling the program into schools, because one of the biggest fear is that culturally we are very diverse, and we've got different values and beliefs depending what should stay at home and be taught at home and what should go out to school. And I think that perhaps a lot of work could be done in addressing and demystifying what the program is about, what teachers would doesn't teach, that actually presenting and enabling children to talk is not about placing views into their mind.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's about giving them voice and letting them know that it's okay to bring it into open and talk about their concerns rather than brushing it under the carpet and feeling shame about the difference. And so from the parent point of view, but also my ethnic background, I'm aware that there are a lot of assumptions which perhaps I wonder if you met those, if you had
I mean, agendas, you know, it has diversity running through it in the sense that it has case studies with children in a range of schools around Wales, so that's an important part of it. But also because it has the rights and equalities and diversity and voice running through that, that's the whole feature of the resource. How do we listen and learn? But it's also, like you say, it's not about, you know, placing an idea into a child. It doesn't.
No, exactly.
It's a model that's not backed up by any research. So children, all of us, you know, listen and learn about lots and lots of things around the world. We teach all sorts of things in school. You know, young people, children. Yes, you talked about the sponges earlier. We are all sponges, but it doesn't kind of come in and stay there. You know, it's interacting. You're always interacting with the world around you, with what you're learning and watching and viewing. it's about bringing that into an environment, educational environment, to be able to talk about all of those things, to learn about what laws and rights are, to debate things. But that idea that, you know, children just mop up stuff and it just sits inside them is a fallacy anyway. But I think, again, there are lots of, like you say, how do we work with that? You know, how do we work with some of the misinformation or misconceptions about what learning actually looks like and feels like? And that's a job of work to do. And educating the media as well a little bit around some of those stories that get perpetuated over and over and over, and maybe focusing a little bit more on some of the positive, affirmative ways in which this is done in different schools, you know, who serve different catchment areas in Wales, because there are some wonderful things going on, but we don't always hear about them. And I think that it's a bit about, you know, popularising some of this stuff as well. I don't know. What do you think? Have you got ideas?
Yeah, this is through conversations. We really quickly jump into assumptions of what something is or isn't, and that's the biggest problem, perhaps, without spending some time and allowing, actually finding out what the program is about, how much it takes from the parent and what we teach children at home, and how we want children to be at home, to placing perhaps more power in school to teaching children, or guiding them about what is okay to talk about, and that difference is, being different is okay.
Absolutely.
So that, I'm aware that that might create a lot of anxiety from the parental point of view.
Maybe. I think when you kind of explore it through rights and social justice, you're looking at those differences, but you're looking at how some differences, you know, are really oppressive, you know, and it's kind of working with the kind of inequalities. It's not as if there's all the differences are equal. And I think it's working with that, which is difficult, but it's important to learn. And when, you know, and children get this, as we say, they're the most powerless in society, so they've got a kind of connection which you can build on to explore that with them.
And perhaps there's my question to the teachers: how do you find that, or have you found that in the past? Have you had any criticism coming from parents that you are going too far with something, or
no? Actually, we haven't. We're very open with the parents about what we do, and you know, we inform them of the types of things that will be discussed during our philosophy, for example, and they've been really supportive, but we try to give the parents a voice as well. So once a month we send philosophy homework home with a question in English, because the majority of our parents are from English-speaking backgrounds, where they have to discuss a topic with their child, and there's a part for the child to put their opinion, but there's a part for the parent to put their opinion. So I think if parents feel part of things and they feel like they have a voice, and they know that they can come if they're worried about something or they have a question about what we're doing, we're always we say that in the letter, that we're here if you've got anything that you want to ask. But no, generally we've found that the parents to be very supportive of everything that we've done in this sense.
You know, from a research background or research base, that is best practice. It's working with communities, working with families as you develop your RSE. And then you don't have those, it's actually always in dialogue.
Yes.
And that's how it works. And then if there are concerns, then you address those and work with that. And that's how you need to,
isn't it?
Yeah, and you have to work. If you're looking at a whole school approach now to RSE, it's not about withdrawing from a single lesson. And we're actually in Wales, we're problematising the right to withdraw. Many of us, including the Children's Commissioner for Wales, feels that's not an option. It's not a right. It's actually that ongoing dialogue about how we build our RSE curriculum with children, with teachers, with governors, with the community, with families. And it can be difficult, but it's ongoing. And I think if it's always there, like you say, not a one-off lesson or a drop-down week.
It's part of the ethos of the school, isn't it?
Yeah.
And parents then respect that as part of who we are as a school and the school their children.
And then sending stuff home. You know, I think, again, that's
giving
really...
parents a voice.
And agendas, you know, has all those creative activities. So, you know, it might be they write something, but also they might come home with a jar, or they might ask them to do a little bit of a creative project, and then it sparks conversations then between children and parents, and dog conversations about pink and blue collars.
It's not only that; it's been on the agenda. And I remember when the program started at school, the theme "Stop Stereotyping" was really strong at home.
You remember that? Yeah.
Yes. So everything was about stereotyping and not stereotyping.
Well, we've had a really interesting discussion, and I just want to thank you both to share from different perspectives as a parent and as a teacher and as a school, you know, how primary gender can work, but just more broadly about how do we now work with the new Relationships, Sexuality Education curriculum. I think there's lots of ideas here, and I really hope that this little film may just, you know, clue people in and inspire people to have a go. And
thank you very much for all your work and inspiration and look after children. And that's absolutely great. Thank you.
Thank you.